You did a beautiful job of guiding us through the story. And there were some specific moments like going into the doctor's office and you were like, just give me anything, like give me something to stop this. Like that was a very clear, like I could see the picture and we think in pictures. And so we want to be able to paint those specific moments, but have the flexibility to pull us out and then list again. Here's the in NLP, it's called chunking up and chunking down. And then listing is kind of the lateral chunking. So it just moves the story along a little faster, highlighting those specific moments that really had that impact. In this episode, I am so honored to coach Michall J Medina. Michall went from being a former electrical engineer turned spiritual thought leader. She overcame suicidal depression and social anxiety, and now she serves people who have already gone through their spiritual awakening and have been working on themselves for a while. In this episode, you're going to hear some masterful communication techniques that Michall delivers without even knowing that she is brilliant in NLP. And we work on a few reframes on how she could position her story to have the impact and kapow so that it communicates authority. Stay tuned for the episode. Before we dive in, let me tell you about the book that started a podcasting revolution, Make Every Podcast Want You. It is not just a bestseller, it is a 2-time gold medalist, baby. This book is your ultimate guide to landing dream podcast interviews, building authority authentically, and making your voice the one they remember. If you've got a message and a mission, this is your mic drop moment. Grab your copy today in the link below and step into the spotlight that you were born for. While we make every effort to bring you the best and correct information, we are all still learning.
Welcome to the Communication Queens podcast for the visionary leaders, speakers, service providers, and podcasters who are looking to stand out sharing their story. I'm your host, Kimberly Spencer, former screenwriter turned master communications coach. On this podcast, I'll be coaching you on how to share your own transformation story so that you increase your visibility, influence, and income on podcast interviews. Let's get your voice heard.
This podcast is not intended as a substitute for professional medical treatment or diagnosis. Always consult with a doctor for any medical issues you may be having. Michall, welcome to Communication Queen. So I want to start with you. Just open up the floodgates of your story.
Okay. My story, I lived in Texas at the time in the Houston area, and I was living in the religious community. I had converted to Orthodox Judaism, and so, kind of all the religious Jews live in the same neighborhood, that kind of thing. And so I was living there at the time, and one day I don't know what happened, like why or or what, but I had visited my old college town, and a friend walked up to me that I hadn't seen in like years. So she was like really excited. And usually that's like my normal demeanor. I'm like very friendly and outgoing and excited. Like that's just how I always was, and made friends easily, was the life of the party. That's like the personality that I had. And so I don't know why, but for whatever reason, she came up to me and I just froze. Like my heart started racing and I was like tensed up. My mind was blank. I couldn't think. And I was just like frozen. And I didn't know why it was happening. And she was like excited, but then she was like looking at me concerned. And I could see that she was looking at me concerned, but I didn't know like what was going on or how to calm it or what. And so that really freaked me out. And from then on, like any time I would interact with people, the same thing would happen. I couldn't control it. And I'm like, what is going on with me? And it was anxiety. I was going into a fight or flight response. And so that really sent me into a downward spiral. And I was working as an engineer at the time, and I could work from home. I had the option of doing that. So I would, just stay home. I would wake up, in the morning and just stay in bed, just bawling my eyes out because I was like, what's wrong with me? What's going on? Like, why can't I just be myself? Why can't I just be normal? Like, I can't control this thing. What's going on? And so I would just be bawling my eyes out till like 5 p.m., just laying in bed. And then I would roll out of bed, work till midnight from my computer. Same thing the next day. I didn't even want to leave my house because I lived in the religious community. So I was like, if I leave my house, I'm going to run into someone I know, and then I'm going to create this horrible, traumatic, awkward experience that I can't control. And so yes, that was like my quarter life crisis, was just getting hit with social anxiety out of nowhere. And I spent 6 months just like miserable like that. And then after about 6 months, I talked to my sister. My sister had been going through anxiety and depression for years. So she was telling me about cognitive behavioral therapy and medication. And I was like, medication? I was like, if there's something that can like fix whatever's going on in my brain and like add some serotonin and I feel fine, like I'm all for that. So I went to the doctor. I was like, I need this. Please prescribe me something. And she prescribed me medication, sent me to a therapist, and I started doing the cognitive behavioral therapy. And I did about 3 or 4 sessions, and I quickly realized that she was telling me how to cope with the anxiety when it comes up, like how to like keep myself calm. And I was just like, you know what? Like, I don't want to accept that I need to live with this for the rest of my life and just manage it. I was like, if there's something that happened in my brain where all of a sudden I started experiencing this anxiety, there has to be a way to undo whatever happened. Like, because I was fine before. So, and then as I was on the medication for a while, I started feeling suicidal, and I didn't feel suicidal before the medication. So that part really freaked me out. And I was like, okay, you know, if this thing is controlling my brain chemistry and it's might be making things worse, I'm just going to get off of this as soon as possible. And so that kind of started my journey of searching for healing, and I went to trauma therapy because I wasn't exactly sure what caused the social anxiety, but I had an idea that it maybe had to do with a group rejection by a group of friends that I experienced. And so I'm like, okay, maybe that made me super insecure and I felt unsafe to be me, you know? And so that was like the only thing I could think of. So I would go to the therapist, talk about the experience with the group of friends, and I'm like, there has to be some way to go deeper. There has to be some way to just undo whatever happened in my brain. I don't know what happened, but this can't be it, just talking about it. So I would go to hypnosis. That's what I tried next. And hypnosis was, you know, the guy calming me and telling me I am confident in front of people. And I did feel more confident. And there were times where I would, I would put myself in social situations and I'm like, wow, like I'm not freezing up. I'm actually feeling fine. But then a few days later, I would go back to having the anxiety. So I was like, okay, this isn't a permanent solution. I don't want to go to hypnosis sessions for the rest of my life to keep my brain from reverting back to being anxious. So, yeah. And so at that point, I started exploring alternative modalities. I started, first I experienced my very first energy healing session, and I noticed like how visceral, like the I could feel the energy moving, and I could feel like things shifting. I could feel things like up here, and I was like, what's over here? Like, you know, and I would just feel these things shifting within me, and then I would feel more energized and happy and a little bit more free. So I'm just like, okay, I need to learn what this is. So I would sign up for these certification courses to learn energy healing modalities, and then I would learn it specifically so I could just do sessions on myself. Like, I'm so determined to figure this out. I'm not going to live like this the rest of my life. So I would just do sessions on myself. And at a certain point, I decided to quit my engineering job because I was like, on top of everything that's going on, that my life is crumbling down. I couldn't bring myself to also work a job that wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, even if I didn't know what it was at that point. And so I was just like, okay, I'm gonna quit this job, and I also needed time to focus on myself and heal, and I couldn't do that if I was working all the time. So I also decided with quitting my job to move to Israel because on top of everything else, I felt like living in the Jewish community was very difficult because people are constantly expecting you to meet a certain standard of how to behave, how to dress, and people are like scrutinizing you. And the last thing I wanted was people gossiping about me.
So you went to Israel?
Israel was honestly, it was the only place where I felt like I could be free away from people's scrutiny, because if I moved anywhere else in the world, this is like how far in the insecurities I was. I was like, people in the Jewish community would probably be like, oh, she moved to this place. Let's see if she's in touch with the rabbi there. Let's see if she's still being religious. And I just wanted to get away from anyone's criticism and in judgment. I was like, I need to just disappear from their radar. I want to figure myself out without any expectations. So Israel was like the only place where I could go, where I could just like disappear into the masses and no one could keep tabs on me. So yeah.
To fast forward to what you do today, I mean,
Yes.
how long of a gap was that between your initial anxiety attack and then having the awareness of what did you realize when you were in Israel?
Yeah, so the initial anxiety attack was 2016. I moved to Israel in 2018. And then I still technically live in Israel, although I'm hanging out in Texas at the time. But yes, what was the other part of your question?
And what did you realize when you were over in Israel? Like, what was the breakthrough to see that this is something beyond mental, emotional, and even physical?
Yeah. So that, I guess I started becoming more open to the awareness of that as I was exploring these energy healing modalities. I did most of the energy healing modality exploration once I was already living in Israel. And so, I had trained, and as I was doing that, I was like kind of expanding my conscious awareness. Like I was also learning spiritual concepts, like what is this human experience, how our thoughts create our reality. And so it was just like this gradual expansion of perception, of consciousness, of like understanding the bigger picture of like who I am beyond this like physical human me, and then how that ties into energy healing and manifestation, and how we're creating our own reality, and how, after a couple of years of doing these energy healing modalities on myself, it was actually a mentor who helped me realize that what I was doing was treating it as a problem to be solved, which if you understand it in a way of consciousness, you're viewing something as a problem. So you're constantly recreating that into existence of needing to solve the problem. And you can't really break out of that if you're constantly recreating that in your conscious awareness. And so it's through learning to relate to yourself in a way of like, this isn't something to fix. There's nothing wrong with me. There isn't a problem to be solved, but actually the part of me that is experiencing this anxiety is an aspect of myself that's just needing to be validated, to be loved, a part of myself that's wounded, a part of myself that just needs to be loved back into wholeness. And so that's when things started to really shift. Like that's where my self-healing sessions went from just like spinning the hamster wheel, like nothing's really like I'm not reaching any breakthroughs, to like I'm reaching some breakthroughs now. That's like that little shift is like huge,
That is the power of perspective. And so I want to dive into a few of these amazing aspects of your story. And first of all, thank you so much for your vulnerability and transparency, and just sharing all of the details of this journey that you've been on, this almost decade-long journey of healing and transformation, and now using it to serve other people, which is amazing. First, we'll start from the end and go back. So first, I want to say the perspective shift, like highlight, even though that was what a mentor said to you, there is a communication framework basically in neurolinguistic programming to communicate to the subconscious mind directly. And you did it, and I don't know if you knew you did it, but you did it really wonderfully. And so it's called switching the referential index. And so it's where you're speaking is one thing. And then when you shifted, you said, oh, and my mentor said this to me. And then you said, so what you did is you went from one communication of having the focus be on you, me as in you, to the you as in the listener. So you did that expertly, because suddenly that lesson that your mentor said to you is no longer just you as in you, but it's you too as in everyone listening. Yeah. You did that expertly well. I don't think you knew you did it. Did you know?
No.
It was brilliant, seamless, and it drove that point home so hard when you said when you're creating, like when you're focusing on the problem, you're basically spinning the wheels and creating that problem to manifest because you're seeing it as a problem. Mm-hmm. So you switched it from being you learning the lesson to you teaching the lesson. It was brilliant, masterful, loved it. So that's definitely something to take with you into future podcast interviews, because just doing that alone, it hits the subconscious mind. So that lesson sticks even longer.
Wow. I love that. Nice.
Yeah. And now looking at your story, there are so many layers.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the tell us about yourself, it can be, you'll get it on every podcast. You'll always get that question, period. And the journey, we want to look at how do you establish yourself as the expert of what you've gone through, and also position yourself with like a kapow in the beginning. So what you didn't do in the beginning was say, I do this and I help this, and this is how I am the master of my craft, of my industry, of what I do. And it all came from this experience of that. So it's what we can do is bring the end to the beginning, so people see that, and then they are able to go with you on the journey of the story.
How about that?
Because then you're already in the light of the expert versus being in the, you want your audience to see you as the guide.
Yeah.
As the Yoda, not as the Luke Skywalker. And by starting your story at the beginning, you start it where they see you as the Luke Skywalker.
So would it be something like a simple statement of like, I healed myself of social anxiety and developed my own methodology, and then go to the beginning? Or would it be?
Yeah, you can do that. Or you can, if I, as a podcast host, had introduced you, and like, because sometimes on podcasts they will say like, and here's your official fancy pants bio and all the things, and then you get to feel really good, and you're like, oh yeah, I did really do some really cool shit in my life. Okay, cool. But that experience of being able to have that positioning. So either you do the positioning if the podcaster doesn't do it for you, or the podcaster does the positioning, and then you can start your story where you started it. But since I didn't do the positioning and we just kind of left it open-ended, that then just know that it's on you to then position yourself as like, here's my expertise, here's what I do, and then let me tell you the story of how I got to this place. And then secondly, like there are some transformative, like major lessons that you've gone through. And you hit on some major things like mental health, suicidal ideation, being on pharmaceutical medicine. So I would just be aware, and we've had this with some of our clients who are in naturopathy or in genetic counseling, where we do have an offer, a medical disclaimer, just for your own business protection, simply because it's saying this is not medical advice. And that's something that you can give to the podcast host, or you can just say that simply because, as someone who has gone through mental health challenges, we always want to position ourselves safely with honoring the industries for what they are, right? And that they serve the place for where they serve. They just weren't the tools that you've used. Like you use them for a time, and then you evolved into some other tools and you would develop your own modality. So it's just a safety thing. So that could be submitting a medical disclaimer. Don't worry about doing it. We do that for all our podcasts if there is one. But just so that we just want to protect ourselves, right?
Okay. So then this is something that would be included in like the show notes or something, right?
Yeah, in a show notes, or you could also have like inform the podcaster, hey, I know I talk about some mental health and some suicidal ideation. It also establishes you as a professional as well, where like I have a medical disclaimer that you can just pop into the podcast. So it makes it easier on them so they don't have to remember, because not all podcasters will do it. But the podcasters, as you go on bigger podcasts, definitely there are those, if you're giving financial or medical advice, and you're not giving financial or medical advice, you are sharing your financial story and your medical story. And that is the powerful, that's why I corrected it, because you are not giving financial advice. You are not giving medical advice. You are just simply sharing your story from your lived experience. And this podcast is for entertainment and education only.
Nice. Okay.
If you listen to some podcasts like Dr. Mark Hyman or Dr. Aviva Romm, you can find and pick up on some good, like just quick little medical disclaimers that you can also submit with yourself and when you go on a podcast and say, hey, just what looking out for you. Yeah. That covers the podcaster's ass, it covers yours ass, everybody's ass is covered. We love a good covered butt.
If you're listening to this interview thinking, I want to do that, I want to be on more podcasts, I want to share my brilliance with the world, then I have got the service for you. It is called Podmatch. Think of it like Bumble, but for podcasting. This AI-powered platform matches you with the right podcast host so you can pitch less and get booked more. I've used it to land aligned interviews that amplified my voice and built my brand. It is literally one of the few services I recommend in my best-selling award-winning book, Make Every Podcast Want You. Sign up now at podmatch.com in the link below.
Yes. And this is something that would be enough to be in the show notes, or would they have to announce it on the podcast itself?
It's announced on the podcast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it's my personal recommendation for those who share a story of mental health. Some podcasts will have trigger warnings. I'm not the biggest for I'm not the biggest person for, it's dependent upon the podcaster. I'm not the biggest for trigger warnings. But I will enlighten people in my intros that as a podcaster, that certain things inside of this podcast may activate someone. And so that they're aware, so that they don't stumble upon it and aren't like, because what in communication, if you get permission up front, and it's permissive communication. If you get permission up front, it creates an agreement between you as the communicator and the audience as a listener. And you can do this in coaching as well. I've done this many times where I'm like, I'm going to ask you a question. It's probably going to piss you off. Is it okay if I ask it? And I've never had a client say no. But then I get to ask a very challenging question to them. And then but it's because they also gave me permission, which then they already have an agreement, which subconsciously makes them more accepting what you're going to say. How's this feeling so far?
Yes. I'm tracking.
Yes. And I love the length of your story. You can also curtail that a little bit, saying 2 years of, you had spent 2 years struggling to figure everything out, and you can just list it, saying I went from having anxiety disorders to cognitive behavioral therapy to medication that made me suicidal to then exploring hypnotherapy, alternative methods, and then finally just choosing to remove myself entirely from my environment and flying to Israel.
Oh, I love that. Every single time people ask me a story and I'm like, oh, I just said this story earlier today, I'll give you the short version, and then I end up saying the whole thing because it's almost impossible for me to have a shortened version. But I think I'm gonna replay this recording and study what you said so that I have a shortened version prepared.
Yeah. I mean, and that way you have the list.
Yeah.
Because we don't, as the audience and as the listener and as the listeners who could be your potential clients, since you are going on guesting and there is potential income with that of attracting people, you want to highlight in your story how you understand how your ideal client is feeling in those emotions, but not have it be, here's all the pain and stuff that I went through, and not having the focus be on that. And that's kind of where it felt in your story, was that the focus was on this saga of quite a journey that you've had. And it is, and it's not to discount that at all. It's just to say, here's the litany of what I went through. And then how in your story, instead of sharing the content, can you share the context of your experiences, of the emotions that you were feeling? And really, if you're comfortable with it, go back and be in a moment of just sharing the challenge of just, even if we can feel your frustration with like, oh my gosh, I was trying all these things and nothing worked. That experience, suddenly that hits the person who's going through that spiritual awakening and like, I'm needing something else that, traditional systems are not providing.
Yeah.
Then, and they start to look alternative, then that's where someone's like, maybe I need to explore some other possibilities.
Yeah. Okay. So I really like the shortened version. You said like I went through anxiety, suicidal ideation, blah blah blah, moved countries, and then like once I lay that out, I can go into the emotions of like I just felt like I was trying so many things and nothing was working. So it's like I'm giving an overview of the story, like a synopsis, and then I'm going into the frustrating emotion that they can relate to.
Yeah.
But not going into all the details of the story.
Yeah. I mean, you can go into some specifics because you did a beautiful job of guiding us through the story. And there were some specific moments like going into the doctor's office and you were like, just give me anything, like give me something to stop this. Like that was a very clear, like I could see the picture, and we think in pictures. And so we want to be able to paint those specific moments, but have the flexibility to pull us out and then list again. Here's the, in NLP, it's called chunking up and chunking down. And then listing is kind of the lateral chunking. So it kind of it just moves the story along a little faster, highlighting those specific moments that really had that impact of like, oh my gosh, like this is what I'm feeling. And this is like my experience, and the ones that model and mirror your ideal customer of what they're going through. So typically, let's go into who your ideal customer is and where they are in their journey with their spiritual awakening.
Yes. Okay. I feel like the most ideal customer for my type of work are people who already went through like the beginning part of my story. Like they already went through the midlife crisis, quarter life crisis, like rock bottom
job. Yeah.
Yes, all of that. And they found spiritual awakening. They have been trying to self-heal and going from, session to session, doing modalities on themselves. And they're on the healing path already. They've been on the healing path for a while, and they do feel like they're spinning in circles, like they're not reaching the breakthroughs that they are trying to reach. They're well versed with all these modalities, but for some reason they just can't reach these breakthroughs, which is, you can kind of see where that was in my story. Yeah.
And that makes it all the more important. If they've already gone through the beginning, you don't have to go through the depth of the beginning. You can list out the beginning because they've probably got a laundry list too, where they're like, oh, here's my to-do list of all the things that I tried that didn't work.
Yeah.
And so then they're like, oh yeah, she went through a similar journey. So, but it's not about that list if that's not where they're coming to you. If they're coming to you after they've already started doing some energy healing, but they're still seeing this thing as something that they have to fix and as a problem. And so that's where we get to the perspective shift. And so go back into your story and tell us more about that experience. You mentioned it. There was something, and like I said, you did it so expertly well in switching the referential index in NLP. And talk more about that moment of what that felt like when you actually started to see results.
So there's the moment where the mentor blew my mind from this different way of seeing things. And then there's the moments afterwards where I started to reach the shifts within myself. So which one?
Well, you already blew our minds. So let's go to the shifts within yourself.
Okay. All right. So at this point, I had been in Israel for a while. I graduated from my MBA. And so it was time for me to figure out what I wanted to do in my career. And I decided that I wanted to teach people how to heal themselves. So I started my own coaching business. I saw like a Facebook ad and how to become a coach, like do this certification. So that kind of started my business journey of wanting to share what I've learned with others. And so I hired a business mentor, but she was more of like an energy, process emotions, and tying into growing your business type of mentor. And so working with her, that was the first time where I experienced like tuning into my body, like more of somatic work. And so whenever I would have like insecurities or fears of rejection that would come up, like as I was putting myself out there trying to grow my business, I would get on calls with her, and then she would be like, okay, where do you feel it in your body? Do you feel pressure, a tightness? And she would have me like tune in and drop into my body and then start to breathe into the space of tightness. And so then like everything would start to expand. Like I would be feeling an emotion, but I wasn't like clenching my body. I was actually like holding myself open. And as I would allow the emotions to come up, I would start to reach these shifts, like these shifts in perspective, where before, like I would be, seeing the situation as like feeling rejected or feeling criticized, and I would feel these insecure feelings. But then through allowing this process of being open and relaxed within my body, allowing these emotions, I would start to naturally see the situation in a new way. Like I would be like, oh, I was seeing this person as like, rejecting me because of blah, blah, blah. But actually, like, and I would just have these aha moments. And so that's when I started to like piece together like how these shifts happen. And then I would do the work on myself after our sessions. And so I would do kind of like these self-healing sessions where like if I felt a trigger or something, I would guide myself to drop in and to allow myself to fully feel and allow the emotion to process. And I started putting like steps to it, like trying to like develop a methodology to guide other people in how they can do this themselves. And so I would I would develop like, okay, first, like, don't judge yourself for what you're feeling. Don't get lost into the story of what happened, but dropping into your body, guiding into your heart space. And so I would start to put these steps to it. And I would, as I would like allow the emotion to be felt, there were times where I would notice like the emotion is, I'm feeling it. Like I'm not judging myself for what I'm feeling, and I'm not trying to push myself to reach a breakthrough. So you're just being present with what you're experiencing. And as you're present with it, sometimes you naturally reach the shifts, and other times I would notice that the emotion was there, but like nothing was happening. And I would just feel the emotion, but nothing was shifting. And so I, with my engineering brain, previous electrical engineer, I'd be like, okay, so what's going on here? And then I would tune into the version of me that I would become if this insecurity, if this trigger were to be fully resolved. Like, who would I be? I would be this open, loving person, just feeling so good within herself, feeling so confident, able to just show up so powerfully and empowered. And so then I would visualize this version of me, and then I would see, okay, if I were to resolve this, am I fully ready to become that version of me? And I would notice this like resistance. I'd be like, oh, I don't know, it feels kind of scary. I don't know if I'm ready for that. And so I'm like, okay, so I'm not ready to become that version of me. That's why this emotion is not shifting. And so I'm like, okay, so how much longer am I willing to go on with these insecurities being triggered? How much longer am I willing to go on with my heart being closed, feeling insecure? And as soon as I would ask myself that, I'm like, you know what? I've been struggling with this for years. I don't think I want to keep living like this. Like, I'm ready to become that version of me. Then I tune back into that version of me, future version of me. And I'm like, okay, now it feels clear. Now it feels like I'm ready to become her. And then the emotion would start to alchemize and shift, and I would reach the shift in perspective. And so this is like the process that I developed and like put it into steps. And that's what I started like teaching and sharing with people.
Before we get to the rest of the juiciness inside of this episode, I want you to imagine this.
You open your inbox and bam, a fresh list of podcasts looking for someone just like you. No cold pitches, no chasing, just aligned visibility served on a silver platter like only royals receive. That's what you get with podcastguest.com. So if you're ready to magnetize opportunities, effortlessly attract aligned audiences, and finally speak your truth on stages that convert, then go sign up now and claim your free profile. Now let's get back to the episode. I feel it from you when you're explaining it, and I'm like, ooh, and that question, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to rewind and listen to this as well, because that question was so dang good of like, am I even ready to be that future version? And like, if the answer is no, oh, okay. Because how often, and so often, we have that moment within ourselves where it's like, we know who we need in this moment to get through whatever it is that we need to get through to be on that other side and jump timelines. But ooh, becoming it, sometimes it's like, I'm really safe and comfortable with these uncomfortable emotions, even though they're sucking. So I love that you bring such a presence to it. And I see as you're just communicating, and y'all, you're gonna have to watch the YouTube video of this, because she's like closing her eyes and getting like actually in tune with her body. And just by watching it, I am feeling it as you are doing it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, and there's power in the shifts.
Yeah.
And so you are demonstrating. So I would love for you to share, obviously keeping confidentiality with clients, of course, a metaphor or an example, because one of the greatest ways that we can demonstrate our expertise on podcasts is by highlighting metaphors or examples, either from our own lives of what we've done, or from some of our clients' lives of what they've been able to accomplish due to these shifts that your coaching and guidance has provided. So can you, while keeping confidentiality, unless it's something that your clients have been like, yeah, share it, please, you changed my life. Like, what is a story of an example of a client who came to you and they were in a similar space and they were needing to re-engineer their relationship with themselves?
Yes. Okay. I have the perfect story. Okay, so it was someone who went through my signature program, Power and Liberation Through Triggers. That's the program that explains the step-by-step methodology that I established, that I just explained. And so by the end of the program, we're asking people to share testimonials. And he said that, like, hands down, the most powerful thing he heard that, like, changed his whole perspective on life is that everything is happening for you. Because it's so easy to feel like, you're experiencing this, like, feeling of rejection, or it feels like things aren't working out in your life and you feel stuck. And it's like, okay, no, actually, these challenges that are coming up in your life are you, as like the powerful creator of your own reality. You're manifesting these situations in your life to bring up what needs to shift within you, because you've already set the intention of who you want to be in your life, what you want to create in your life. And in order for you to step into that version of you, it requires for you to alchemize and shift and release the resistances that you have within yourself. And usually those resistances come from unresolved past experiences, unresolved triggers. And so what needs to happen is you need to experience something in your life for those triggers to come up, so that then you can alchemize them and become that version of you that you intended to step into. So it's like everything is happening for you, even the difficult things. And he's just like, wow, like, I'm mind blown. Like, he was like down in the dumps, like on medication, feeling anxious and depressed, and just like seeing life in this whole new way changed everything. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So first of all, I just have to say, you are a master of switching the referential index in your communication. You did it again, queen. Like, you did it again. And that was so great, because you were giving his breakthrough as the you to the you of the audience. And then you switched it and said, and he was mind blown. And it just automatically was like, yes, of course I'm mind blown. But it was masterful with what you did with your communication and demonstrating that transformation, but the transformation also landing for the audience as much as it is as a case study for what you do. And so you're going to be asked on any podcast, like, give us a tip, give us a strategy, pretty much any podcast that allows us to alchemize this within ourselves. Would you? And so a great way could be in using that story.
Yeah.
So, because when we tell strategy in storytelling format, it changes, it bypasses cognitive dissonance. It actually converts a little bit of dopamine in your brain, and it converts short-term memory into long-term memory. So you can demonstrate the strategy of to you versus for you, and the power of that for you mentality and perspective shift. And if you ever have a podcast, please call it Perspective Shifts, because you said that like at least 10 times on this show. And I'm like, that's the name of your podcast. I love that. Thanks. It's the projector in me. I'm like, that's just what downloaded for me. So take it or leave it.
I love that.
And but you can share that strategy in the terms of the story. So that's by sharing it in the terms of the story, you're demonstrating your authority, you're demonstrating the strategy, you're also giving case study, which also provides social proof that you know what you're doing and that your work works. So you're hitting like 3 buttons of like sales priming right there.
Oh, nice. I love this breakdown of all these things I didn't know I was doing.
Yeah, and that's sometimes the power of just having coaching and having the reflection back. I mean, you know, as a coach, like sometimes people don't see what they're actually doing right within themselves, and then learning how to master that and then double down on that as a strength. So even if there's any other story that you could provide that's like, okay, well, what's another tip? Like, so you have life is happening for you, not to you, which is a huge one that I'm that's in my coaching business, that's number 1 in any business relationship, for you, not to you. What is the second one to alchemize and create those perspective shifts?
So you're asking me now, second tip.
Yeah, so you get to like share about it in the vein of using a story, use a case study, and demonstrate your expertise as what that next step is.
Okay, next step. Got to reflect a little bit on this. Okay, can I just talk out loud?
Yeah, go for it, please.
Okay. Okay, so yes.
There's no right or wrong answer. It's all good.
Okay. So, seeing life as happening for you, not to you. Understand that you're the powerful creator of your own reality, creating into existence the scenarios and circumstances to become who you desire to be. And then after that is, yes, not treating yourself as a problem to be fixed. Not rejecting parts of you, but accepting. Okay, so I guess I'll share a story of how I reading yourself as
perfect.
Okay.
Yes, because that also kind of concludes and brings us to closing of like, here's your story. We've already learned about the beginning. We already have the middle of like, here's who you are, here's what you're doing, here's how you've helped, here's how you're already serving. And now we get to like, how did that shift occur? So go for it.
Yes. Okay. All right. So this is back to the session I had with the mentor who was just like, you're treating this as a problem to be solved. So I'm like explaining to him, like, I'm just so tired of feeling closed and stuck. I just want my heart to be open. I want to be me. And then he's like, kind of intuitive. So he's like tuning in. He's like, He's like, you're treating this as a problem to be solved. I'm like, but it is a problem. What do you mean? It's a problem. I'm trying to solve it. And he's like, no. And then he's like, okay. So he guided me to tune in. And so I start to tune into the aspect of me that's like just feeling closed, feeling scared, feeling like she can't open her heart. And that was the first time that I started to relate to that part of me as like a past version of me. And so I saw this like, 24-year-old version of me just like feeling hurt by this group of friends and just understanding that like this aspect of myself just wants love, just wants to feel accepted, just wants to feel validated. And so from that moment on, I was just like, of course, like, what am I doing? Like treating her like, oh, stop having anxiety. We got to fix you. Like, I was like perpetually rejecting her, which was keeping the problem in place. And so it was like, okay, yes, like I want to give her the love that she needs so that she can feel safe. And that, like, with having that as the foundation, like, then everything starts to shift from that moment on, because, you know, you've stopped halting the healing process as you're working on the healing process. Like, you're actually creating a foundation of like things being able to be alchemized, you know, from then on. Yeah.
And how did that shift? How often do you have anxiety anymore?
I don't have anxiety anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. And where do you feel that transformation in your body?
Definitely my lower belly, which I was like cut off from my lower belly for the longest time. So
yeah. It's funny. I look at past identities of who I've been, and I was like that girl, 17-year-old girl who's so driven by perfection and had to be a certain weight and everything and was bulimic. And I just look at her and I'm like, I don't even feel her in my body. She's like out here. I'm like, I just want to give her a hug, like as a mom. I'm like, you're loved, you're amazing, and you're no longer like a part of this evolution. Not really.
Yeah.
So it's powerful work that you're doing, Michall. So how can we find you? How can we connect with you? How can we work with you to guide us through our own spiritual evolution?
Yes, I think the best place to connect with me would be on Instagram. It's instagram.com/Michall J Medina. And then on there, you can reach out to me, send me a message. There's also my links in there. You can check out the Power and Liberation Through Triggers program. And there's also a super awesome custom meditation option where I can channel I have these powerful meditations where I open up like a healing vortex and bring in, source, creator of all that is, God, and angels and guides, and they're like the energy vortex is open to assist you in making those shifts. And so I channel what needs to come through during that meditation for you to reach the shifts. And so there's that option as well. So yeah.
And how do your old engineer pals feel about your channeling now?
I haven't talked to them. Somewhere along this whole journey, I deleted my old Facebook account because I was trying to disappear from the world. And then I created a new one later. So yeah, I think they're still like connected with me on LinkedIn, but I really keep up with anyone.
I think the beauty is that's the one of the great shifts that can happen in any form of transformation is because there's fight, flight, freeze that we're familiar with, but there's also flock. And like, that's one of the scary ones that's not really talked about. But when you evolve, like biologically, when we leave the tribe, leave the old tribe, like being out alone, quote unquote, is literally biologically signals danger and fear. So the fear of rejection. So you boldly went into the unknown by yourself, escaped into a whole new space. I feel like a freaking Frozen 2 song is about to happen. And then you found and not only found, but you created your own beautiful community of light workers, of people who are interested in having deeper relationship with source and with themselves. And I think that that's so powerful what you're doing. I always love to end it with, what did you love about our conversation today?
Ooh, so much. I feel like you've given me really helpful tips, especially like how to share my story and like which parts to highlight. I think that was probably the most valuable. Yes. There's so much more, but that was the best.
Awesome. I'm so glad I could serve you on this conversation. And as always, my fellow communication queens, stand out and be heard. Queen, if what you just heard stirred something in you, if you are imagining how your voice, your story, your genius could be positioned with the same clarity and magnetism, then it's time. Book your visibility consultation with me today.
I will guide you personally through a 7-step communication queen strategy, personalized connections to podcasts that need your voice, and an implementation plan that makes you unignorable. But this isn't for everyone. It's for the visionary who is ready to be seen. If that is you, click the link in the description to book your visibility consultation now.
Thank you so much for listening. If you love this episode, subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your friends. For more tips on guest podcasting, storytelling, and communication strategies, follow us on social media at Communication Queens Agency and visit us at communicationqueens.com. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. And in the meantime, remember, your story has the power to save one life. Let your story and your voice be heard.